Right, so a while ago, a few podcasts back, I did a bit of a special on the Secret Monkey Island.
You did.
Now, as I said at the time, that was the first adventure game I'd ever played, point-and-click adventure game. Now, today I'm going to talk about a very different game, but there's a sort of similarity in this case. Today I'm going to talk about Dune II, a classic game in my eyes. Now, the reason that I'm going to link it to Monkey Island because it was the first game that introduced me to a whole new genre, the RTS genre, the real-time strategy games. And I think for many people, I can't speak for everyone here, it was the first real-time strategy game people played. And
I think it was.
Yeah,
it's one of the few that I've played. So,
yeah.
Command and Conquer maybe a little bit afterwards.
Command and Conquer came made by the same team actually. So, well, again, it was a game I got from my uncle for the good old trusty Amiga. Yeah, all legitimate, of course.
Yeah, completely legal, of course.
It was released on the Amiga and the PC in 1993, I believe, and it was also released on the Mega Drive in the same year.
Woo!
So I think Dylan and Keith, you've played the game on the Mega Drive.
Yeah, that's the one we played. Yeah.
Right.
I had it because I lent it to Keith.
I believe so.
As children.
Well, I've only played the game on the good old Amiga. I've played it on the PC since as well, and it's one of those games that really caught my attention early on because a bit like the point-and-click games, these kind of real-time strategy games soon turned into one of my favourite types of games. So it was made by Westwood Studios, and basically I knew every game they made after that. I was like, if it's made by Westwood, it's got to be good. So Command and Conquer came out, Red Alert came out, and I already knew, it's a strategy game, I'm going to like this. So it opened the doors to one of my favourite genres of games. So Dune II.
Yeah, it was a mark of quality, wasn't it? Really?
It really, really was. Now, before I talk about Dune II, I want to sort of rewind the clock a little bit. It's only fair, I think, to briefly talk about Dune, the first game. And before I talk about that, I think it's only fair to rewind even further and talk about the film.
The film.
Yeah. And then before I talk about the film...
You better talk about
the novel.
Yes.
And before the novel... No, that's where it starts. Now, I haven't read the novel. I don't know if you guys have read it.
No, I've seen the film.
Fair enough. Well, the book apparently was released in 1965 by Frank Herbert.
Yep.
Never read it, but apparently
Herbert's
it's a classic. And the film came about 20 years later, 1984. Who directed Dune? Any ideas? Quite a famous director.
It wasn't Spielberg.
It wasn't Spielberg.
No.
Was it an action director or?
I think he was more known for his more sort of controversial or sort of mysterious kind of films.
Is it David Lynch?
It is David Lynch.
Yeah.
Well done. So, classic, great director. And he's not the main actor in it, but does anyone know?
Sting.
There you go.
Bright, like a ginger wig.
I have seen the film, but it must be years ago.
Oh yeah,
15, 20 years.
Yeah.
I don't know how long ago it was, but apparently it's
Carl McLachlan is the lead, isn't it?
That's right. Well remembered.
I
do have fond memories of the film, which I remember. I might watch it again.
It's got some quite weird imagery in it and stuff.
That's right.
It's pretty cool.
The first Dune game. Now you might think Dune and Dune 2, very similar games, are actually very, very different. Have you ever played the first Dune game?
I've never played the first one. No.
It's
is that the one that's a bit like an adventure game?
perfect. Yeah, it's an adventure game,
isn't it?
It's not quite a point. There's some point
weird.
It is a bit weird.
It's a bit weird. I didn't really.
Bit of a strategy game, bit of an adventure game. You walk around and you talk to people. And you try and do this and that.
No.
I actually did enjoy it. I never actually owned the first Dune. I used to play it at my uncle's house back in the day. I thought, it's not a bad little game.
Okay.
And then of course the one I really want to say is good old Dune II, which had two titles actually. So it was known as the Battle for Arrakis.
Yep, that's
what the Mega Drive one was called. Yeah.
Dune II Battle for Arrakis, and I think it's called also Dune II Building a Dynasty as well. I think that's when it was released in America.
Oh, okay. Dynasty.
I can't
do an American accent.
Exactly. Now, the first Dune was made by Crow Interactive. And Dune 2 was made by Westwood. Westwood. So, different publishers or different developers, I should say, but they're both published by Virgin. Mm-hmm. Now, these two games, I might make a little mistake here, but these two games had a bit of a frosty relationship with each other. These two teams, these two developers, didn't really like each other. I don't think, or there was definitely some rivalry. And actually, look, at one point, the first Dune game was supposed to be scrapped, and full attention just for Dune 2, but the guy in charge, apparently, I've got his name here, Stephen Clark Wilson. He was told by Virgin to tell the first Dune to stop development and just focus on Dune 2. But apparently he didn't pass them the message, and they both made these games.
Ouch.
And it was almost like a race who could finish first. So the French team, the Cryo team, they made the first Dune. Then a year later, Dune 2 came out. So,
but they were being developed side by side.
They were, and really the first, it really was. It was. The boss at Virgin Interactive at the time, not Richard Branson obviously, but the guy in charge of the games, wanted to make a strategy game. He read the book actually. He read the book and thought the whole point of this novel was about controlling the spice. Yeah. And we're not talking about Spice Girls right now. We're talking about some real natural resources on this planet. That's what he thought the game should be about. So he said, this is what you need to do. You need to build some sort of strategy game. And actually, Dune 2 is not the first ever real-time strategy game ever made. Any idea what it is?
Oh, I think I know this.
It's an interesting question. It was surprisingly released on the Mega Drive, the first ever official, you could argue.
Is it Herzog's Zwei?
Herzog's Zwei.
Keith gets it.
Yeah.
Herzog's Zwei. Now I haven't played. Have you played that game?
Years and years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now the team at team at Virgin played this game and said, this is great. Look at this amazing game. And to be fair, I think Herzog's Zwei. They can take the crown as being officially the first ever. That's an amazing thing, isn't it? The first ever real-time strategy game.
Absolutely.
Now that game apparently wasn't really about resource management and so forth or building bases. It's more about control of robots, I think.
Yeah.
I might be wrong. But Dune 2 took the idea of controlling units, but they included, like I said earlier, resource management, building up a base, defending your base, and then trying to defeat.
Mining for spice, you got to store
mining for spice, exactly. So they take the crown, but Dune 2, they put a lot of foundations in place for many future strategy games. So they had something called the Fog of War. So you can only see a very limited area around your base when you first start the game. Okay. But when you move your units out, the rest of the map reveals itself. And again, you can control units and put them into place. I loved it. I love the idea of not only building the arsenal and your tanks and so forth. I love the idea of actually building a bit of a base as well. I've always enjoyed the games like SimCity as well, things like that. Yeah. And this kind of brought two elements together. I loved it. I really, really enjoyed it. Now, Dune 2, when you first start the game, you can actually... Well, let me set the scene. The scene is this. Emperor Frederick IV of House Carino has set you a challenge. Now, he's set a challenge for 3 houses. So a little bit like Game of Thrones. There's 3 houses. And whichever house, these are big sort of groups basically, controls the spice of the planet, will be able to control it forevermore. And they can get a lot of money out of it. Now, these 3 houses, do anyone remember the names of these 3 houses?
No, it's been too long.
Do you have a guess? The first house, which is very prominent in the film, is the Atreides. And they're the good guys.
That was the one I was thinking of.
They're the good guys.
Yeah.
Then the Ordo, which are kind of in between, a bit of a sneaky sort of team. I think they're the green team. And my favourite group, the Harkonnen. The bad.
Oh, Harkonnen, that's what I was thinking.
You're pronouncing it better than me. Harkonnen. They were the bad guys, weren't they? The evil guys. Now you could choose any of those 3 houses when you start the game, and your job is to destroy the rest of the houses and control the spice. There's a map. So once you've done one map, you move to the next mission. The first couple of missions are very simple. Mine enough spice, so maybe 1,000 spice, wherever it is. They're the first 2 missions. But later on, it's all about using that spice to build up your bases, build up your tanks and arsenal, and destroy all the bad guys on the map. Loved it. Me and my brothers spent hours playing that game. I just, we would tackle the different maps, different ways. We try and beat it this way. I would go back to it very, very often. Very often.
You have to explore to unlock bits of the map. You have to send a little truck or something.
There was little trikes. The trikes are the fastest. Yeah.
And you had to get to actually see the whole map, didn't you?
Right.
I remember that. It was so good.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. And I just loved exploring it and finding these random people that you could kill, and also there's the sandworms, isn't there?
There was a bit of panic when you did stumble upon the other guy,
That's right. You got a bit scared.
What?
What I also like about this game is the 3 houses, even though they have very similar units, very similar strategies, each has a sort of strengths and weaknesses. So one team is slightly fast, and the other team. I like the Harkonnens because they're the strongest. Harkonnen. They're the slowest units later on, but they're the most powerful. And I like the kind of edgy sort of bad boyness to it. So I thought that was cool. And once you progress in the game, you can research and develop better machinery, better tanks, and eventually, I think each house can build their own kind of unique weaponry compared to everyone else. And again, the strengths and weaknesses really show up. Brilliant. And so there's lots of longevity. You can play. You can complete the game. Yeah, complete the game as one team, and then say, "Well, I'll try a different team." There are some cons though.
What are the cons?
There are the cons. There's two big cons for me. That one of them is you can only select single units at a time. So if you want to move a unit to one side of the screen to the other, you have to literally click on that unit.
You can't just.
That's the same as the Mega Drive. Yeah, you can't do a group of them.
Which. They're future games like Command and Conquer and so forth.
You build
a little box around it and you control it. And I think that's obviously much better. So it's quite annoying. Click here, go there. That is a big negative.
I remember shuffling over. So you kind of shuffle a little bit, select another one, shuffle next to him.
It's
fiddly and time consuming.
It is a bit.
But I suppose, like we were saying, it's kind of early days for the genre.
Really early days.
Like I said, things that changed over time.
They developed it. They improved their model.
Yeah.
How many RTS games are there now? It's crazy.
It's ridiculous. And I don't really like the latest games. I think they're too fiddly. I like the.
I've never been massive into them, but there seems to be loads now.
Yeah.
Just like
I kind of lost playing those sort of games probably after Warcraft 3. That was probably my last ever sort of playing that game.
That was a while ago.
It was a while ago. I haven't really played a good Total Annihilation maybe, and that's years ago, wasn't it? Blimey. But. The simple game, not different missions. Each level you've got a different mission to do. You've got to destroy the units. But another big con of the game, I think, is the AI, the artificial intelligence. It's not very smart. The enemies. Okay. So, for example, the enemies, they will literally go towards your base in a direct route.
Yeah.
And if you drive past them,
they don't even.
They'll ignore you.
Yeah,
so there's no. And it's kind of links to AI as well. If you want to click. And trying to attack a unit behind a wall, you have to actually click physically around the wall. Does that make sense? You have to click right then up. You can't just. It won't make a nice own route.
Yeah.
Okay.
And another way, and it's a bit of a cheat really. So that's a little cheat alert here. If you want to learn how to easily win the game, one of the best strategies that me and my brothers found out was literally go to the top corner of the map, and then kind of go along the edge of it, find the base, and they're not expecting that. You can literally go right behind. You can go around, and they're not smart enough to realise that. So
you're skirting around the edge.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's a shame. And at the time, I was like, look, we can defeat these guys.
I never knew that. I could have completed the game a lot quicker.
Well, yeah. Now, this is where we might have a little debate actually, because I think this game works brilliantly with a mouse. It's made for a mouse. I don't see how this game can work on the Mega Drive personally.
It does.
Well,
it does work because me and Keith both played it,
yeah.
and it does work on the Mega Drive.
So there you go.
Do you know why it works?
Go on then. Let's hear it.
Because it's all with the elegance of moving the cursor around with the D-pad.
Yeah.
And some games get it spot on, and other games fail miserably at it. Whereas Dune, it just felt right. It's not, and because the AI wasn't as clever as it could be. So the difficulty curve wasn't, as sharp as it might have been. Then it makes for a good experience on the Mega Drive. Good. I really like it. I think it works, and because you don't need to draw a square to select lots of different vehicles.
You just click
the one that if Command and Conquer wouldn't have worked on the Mega Drive. Because you want to take your 3 and 4 of your tanks and then send them over there.
Interesting.
It'd be harder to draw a box with the D-pad because you have to hold down a button and kind of go left and down, and it would be awkward. But just clicking one thing and then clicking where it needs to go, it does work. Okay. Like a cannon fodder is another one that works okay on the Mega Drive.
Which again, when I play cannon fodder, it's on the Amiga, and I'm used to the Amiga controls, and I think to myself, how can that ever work on the Mega Drive?
Lemmings worked on the Mega Drive.
Lemmings is another one.
So, just like you said, as long as they get the movement of the cursor right, it can work with a D-pad. Really
and when there's only one thing to select, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like things like Command and Conquer just wouldn't have worked because you need to select like multiple.
I'm thinking I'm sure that was released on the PlayStation. So I'm thinking how they did it then. I'm just thinking.
Ooh, need to have a look at that then. That's how
it worked better with the. Oh no, mind you, the analog sticks came later as well.
Yeah,
I don't know. That's one for another time.
It is fun, but again, it's a game that brings back lots of good memories for me. I used to play it all the time. It's a genre I really like. The idea of like I said, resource management, looking after the spice, and laying down your bases, and making sure you put the right foundations in place. So put down the concrete slabs first, building your little silos and military bases, and building bigger units. I loved it. Dune 2. I reckon it could hold up a little bit today, but I suppose if you're used to the more sort of technical RTS games, it might be like, well, where's that feature? But like we said, it laid the foundations.
If you want to go back and see where it all started, those kind of games, and Herzog's Way.
Yeah, exactly.
Try them out.
Now, talking about this, before I wrap this sort of review, sort of retrospective up, there was a Dune 2000 released. So it was almost like a sequel / remastered version of Dune, Dune 2.
Yeah.
And it was again made by Westwood Studios. What year do you reckon that was released?
Year 2000?
No.
1998.
1998.
Okay.
Now I actually played this a few weeks ago. I thought, I've never played Dune 2000. So I got it down on my computer, managed to find a copy online for free. And it's alright, it's just a slightly more polished version of Dune 2. It's pretty much the same things going on, but I did enjoy it.
What's the AI like in that?
I think they've improved things. I do think, if I remember correctly, you can select more units this time. I think they improved the AI a little bit. So
it wouldn't work on the Mega Drive then.
What was that released on? Was it just like PC?
That was, I think, just on the PC. Yeah. That was on PC. And there was actually another future game, one final game called Emperor, Battle for Dune. And that was released in 2001.
Oh.
There you go. So before I sort of wrap it up completely, Frank Klepacki.
Oh yeah.
Good old Frank Klepacki. Now he's the guy that made the music for Dune 2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so when we're lucky enough to
have caught up with him.
Caught up with him recently. Yeah. So he's a bit of a ledge when it comes to the RTS games. He's done all the music on Command and Conquer, Red Alert. His back catalogue is very, very impressive actually. But his first ever lead game, I believe, where he was in charge of the full music, was on Dune 2. Yeah. And a little interesting fact about him, he first worked at Westwood as a tester, a game tester. But when he went, they said, do a bit of music as well. And they slowly integrated him into the games. 17 at the time.
Wow.
Can you imagine? 17 and making waves in the gaming industry back then. I don't know about you guys, but when I was 17... I wasn't doing playing instruments and testing games for Westwood.
I think that Alistair Brimble might have been that as well.
There was a lot back then. I thought there was a lot of young guys that got into gaming. And,
fair enough.
Yeah. So you can see interviews with both of those guys on the website.
Yeah, check it out. It's a good read. And thank you, Frank, for doing a really good interview. So overall, Dune, it really, really opened the doors to future RTS games. Is it officially the first RTS game? No.
Not quite.
Not quite, but it laid a lot of the future sort of things in place. The foundations. Just like a good base, you need good strong foundations. Never build a base actually on Dune 2 without good foundations. The bases will over time they sort of depreciate and they can sort of actually break down eventually. So good little tip there.
Excellent.
So yeah, check it out, Dune 2. Brilliant.
Dune, the battle for Arrakis.
As I said earlier, Dune 2 had a bit of a sequel called Dune 2000. Now, what year was that released? Do you remember?
98.
Well done.
He was listening.
Was that?
He was listening.
Does Keith win?
I win.
1998. Now, I was thinking, there's quite a few games where they put the 2000 at the end, don't they? Can you think of it top of your head?
No.
There is a lot, trust me. So Dune 2000 released in 1998. So I thought I'd play a little game called Millennium.
Oh, I like that.
I was going to start singing the Robbie Williams song Millennium.
No, I don't like
but then I remember we like our listeners.
Yeah, we don't want to offend.
We don't want to offend.
I like that millennium.
So we'll kick off with Dune 2, and the game is quite simple. So I'll probably start with Keith this time.
Go on then.
So I'll say Dune 2 and say obviously released in 1998, and I'll give you a following game. And do you think that came out, even though it's got 2000 in the title? When was it actually released? Was it earlier or later than Dune? Do you understand? And then if you get that right, you move on to the next game. And was it earlier or later than the previous game? Do you understand?
Yeah.
So potentially, Dylan might not even get a go on this game.
I might even get a go. No.
But if Keith gets one wrong, it goes straight to Dylan. And whoever gets to the final game, the final chain, whether you win or lose, whoever wins or loses the final game, to make sense?
Yep.
Yeah, do it.
So Millennium.
Let's go.
So Keith, as I said earlier, Dune 2000 was released in 1998. Do you think F1 2000 on the PlayStation was released later or earlier?
Later.
Correct. It was actually released in the year 2000, believe it or not.
Wow, that's actually
Makes sense.
Yeah. So we're still with Keith then. Do you think, it probably starts a bit easy, but it gets tougher. SimCity 2000, later or earlier than F1 2000?
I'm going to say later.
SimCity 2000 was released in 1993 on the PC.
I knew that.
So it goes straight back to Dylan. So you remember that date, 1993.
93, yeah.
Tempest 2000 on the Jaguar.
Oh, later.
It was later, but only by 1 year, 1994.
Oh.
You sounded very certain.
Very confident. Yeah.
So we're still with Dylan.
All right.
How about NBA Jam 2000, which was released on the N64?
Oh, later.
Yeah, well done. So we're still with Dylan. Grand Prix 3 Season 2000, which was released on Windows.
Before.
Incorrect.
Ah.
It was later, and it was released in 2001.
Whoa.
Believe it or not.
So we're in 2001 now. Okay.
We're in 2001, so we're back with Keith now. So this game's called V2000, or sometimes known as Virus 2000, and it was released on the PlayStation.
Earlier.
Well done. 1998. How about Gunship 2000? This is a bit of a clue here. So it was released on the Amiga, so it should be
earlier.
It was earlier, 1993. Still with Keith. Faceball 2000, which was a SNES game apparently. Never heard of it.
Oh right, so I've heard of it. It's terrible. Earlier or later than 1993? Oh, it's got to be earlier.
It's slightly earlier.
Just earlier.
1 year earlier, 1992.
It's like a first-person thing.
What is it?
It takes place in like a tiny window, and it's really bad. Anyway, go on.
There you go. So there's 2 games left.
Oh no.
So if Keith can get these 2 games in a row, you've won it. If you lose the last one, let's say.
So where are we? 1992.
992. Defender 2000, which was released on the Jaguar.
Oh, later.
Correct. And the last game, can Keith take the crown? And this is a tough one. Breakout 2000, also released on the Atari Jaguar.
So what year was the one we just had?
1996. I had to finish with the Jaguar, didn't I?
Earlier.
Yeah.
Incorrect. Dylan's won it. And this is me being a bit sneaky.
I didn't want it.
I won it by default.
He's won it by default.
Default.
That's the last game. So, Defender 2000...
I got the last right answer. Anyway, go on.
Defender 2000 was released in 1996.
Yeah.
Breakout 2000 was also released in 1996.
Oh.
But Defender 2000 was February and Breakout was in December.
Oh no.
So because Keith lost the last game, Dylan wins.
Oh wow. That's the first time I've beaten Keith in one of your games.
I think it is, isn't it?
Yeah, I was going for the hat trick, I think.
Yeah, unlucky.
This calls for a celebration.
So there you go, guys. If there's any other better Millennium sort of games, let us know.